Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Comedian Hal Sparks comes to Shakespeare Theatre in Washington, D.C. tomorrow for the Sexy Liberal Save Democracy Tour. We spoke about the challenge of political comedy, as well as his hilarious career from Talk Soup to Dude, Where's My Car? Hey, Hal, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP in D.C.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's even more of a pleasure to actually eventually be in your town. There are certain, when I'm doing stand-up or I'm on tour, either with, Nerd Halen or I'm doing the Sexy Liberal stuff, my girlfriend only comes with me if the town is worth it. So, and then we add an extra day on either side of the gig so that we can actually enjoy ourselves instead of it just being, rush to the venue, sound check, do a show, and split. So DC, I pad with a couple extra days because there's some spaces that I like to go to, and I just like the place in general. So it's going to be fun.
Well, I'm glad you deemed us girlfriend worthy or sponge worthy, like Seinfeld.
Well, believe me, it's not my decision in that regard. You know what I mean? I just basically leave it open, carte blanche. I don't know why she's not interested in going to the upper UP of Michigan. That's one of the great mysteries of the ages. But it doesn't make the list the way DC, Seattle, LA, Chicago, those kind of places will be.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad we made the list, and I hope you enjoy, some of the sightseeing while you're here. But let's remind our listeners what we're talking about. You already mentioned it, but it's the Sexy Liberal Save Democracy Tour. It's going to be September 10th at Sidney Harmon Hall. The whole Shakespeare Theatre here. So tell me, who all's on stage with you? What's the idea behind this whole, Sexy Liberal Save Democracy Tour?
Well, we started the Sexy Liberal Tour, years ago, and it was just kind of a way that myself, John Fugelsang, and Stephanie Miller, who, John and I were both regulars on her radio show, could kind of get out and about and start doing live stand-up and tell some jokes and motivate people to vote, which was the primary reason behind it, was just kind of anti-lethargy at that point. And it was the number one comedy tour of the year when it launched, and we've always done really, really well. Now it's a matter of like civic work. We go out when there's a midterm or a general election, that kind of thing, and sort of boost the turnout on our side of things. You can tell from the title which way we lean, but at the same time, ultimately, my basic root is, liberal with a capital L, that everything that we do in a democracy falls under, the old school idea of what liberal means, which is people pick their own leaders, not monarchy, I think is the best, quickest definition.
Yeah, it's crazy that in 2022 we're even discussing the concept of democracy. I thought that was like the given, and then we could debate, liberal and conservative underneath that, from
exactly
from
where I thought so too. Under the umbrella that that we are, as what I would sort of style myself as a democratic nationalist. I would believe it's somebody that that believes in the function of the Constitution and the importance of people picking their leaders.
Transition of power, peaceful transfer of power.
Yeah, crazy notions like that, yeah. And it's, these days, and by the way, it's not like we're not living in stark relief, in terms of like what's going on in Russia, what's going on in China, what's happening and everywhere from Sri Lanka to Baghdad. There's a lot of reasons why you would go in your Yelp review of the United States, you would go, slightly above beats the alternatives. We got a lot going for us. And so motivating people to do that, or at least not taking, allowing them to take their worldview for granted at the very least, and having fun with it. The important thing is that we all eventually get past politics and we can go back to, dancing, or whatever you do with your pastimes. None of my business, quite frankly.
Right. Well, so what all topics do we cover then in the comedy? I guess we got January 6th. We've got the pandemic. It's been a rough couple of years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, by the time we actually get around to it a week from now, we may be on to the Bedminster raid at that point, I suppose. But the nice thing about these shows, like when I do my regular stand-up, I would consider that stuff to be at most socio-political, meaning I don't name names, I don't name dates. I just do comedy that I think should be enjoyable for everybody, no matter who they are, who shows up at the show. But these shows are very specific. And so a lot of the jokes are, they're griddle cakes, man. We're writing them right up to showtime because there's so much going on. And so it's the nice thing about this live show is that it's the essence of sort of live comedy in that regard, is that stuff is heard and maybe never heard again, because by the time we do our next show in Chicago or LA or someplace like that, life has moved on. There's a lot of stuff in the political world that's going on. So that's the exciting thing about these shows for me as a stand-up. It's the challenge and it's the beauty of it. We did these virtual shows, as everybody did during 2020, and I ended up doing a lot of sketches and characters and that kind of stuff on that, because I kind of transformed it into my own little mini SNL. And so I did a song called Florida Man that people can see online, and there's a lot of requests for me to do that live. And so what I do is I update some of the lyrics to what's going on. That's been a recurring kind of thing that we're at. Everything else is just, hot off the presses.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like, you in one city, 1 week you think you're writing jokes about, the January 6th hearings, and then by the time you reach the next city, the president has, taken classified documents to Mar-a-Lago. Like,
Exactly,
every week it gets crazier.
Well, here's the thing. Can you imagine, put yourself in the creative shoes of a person who may have thought, I got my set up. There's the January 6th committee hearings are going. A lot of people are informed about that. I got a lot of room to move. I don't have to reiterate. There's not a lot of exposition. People are ready for these jokes. And then on the Monday before the Tuesday show, in some case, you find they search and seize documents from Mar-a-Lago. Like, you have to you might as well just shred everything, right? Because that's not where everybody's mindset's going to be. Maybe you have 2 jokes that survive, but the rest of it's going to have to be immediate. And these days, things are moving so quickly in this story. You got to be up to date. You can't. I mean, there's still conservative comedians doing baby formula jokes. There's, you know what I mean? They're still doing mask material from like 2 years ago, and you're like, really, dude? So we really like to, to make sure that at least up to the night before, as far as the news cycle goes, if we're on a Saturday night show, that we are, our comedy is completely up to date. It's a great time.
Yeah, well, yeah, no shortage of material for sure. Well, hey, whenever I have someone on, I always love to remind our listeners how you got into this racket to begin with. So I know you were born in Cincinnati, Ohio, but you grew up mostly in Kentucky, right?
I was born there. I was raised in Kentucky. I was born in Cincinnati only because it was the nearest hospital without chickens in it. But I spent most of my childhood in Kentucky. You think I'm kidding? And then 14 years old, moved to Chicago, started doing stand-up, went to Second City, really got into the idea of, comedy especially, but acting and music as genuine jobs, not as some sort of, that's the great thing about Chicago, man. In Chicago, the arts are not magical. Nobody taps you on the shoulder and goes, you got moxie, kid, you want to be in pictures? Like, that doesn't happen. You just go, there's a ladder, go work on your craft. And that I can do. Anybody can understand that. It takes the magic out of it, which is great. As soon as I graduated high school, packed my crap up, went and moved to LA. And I called the 90s the Sisyphus years. You just roll the rock up the hill and watch it roll back down. But eventually,
I want to tell everyone you said Sisyphus, not, it's not something else. You said Sisyphus years.
Yes, it's very important clarification. Right. It's not, that would be a Mar-a-Lago reference that I think we can do at another time. But once I broke through, and got Talk Soup, then Queer as Folk, then while I was shooting Queer as Folk, doing all the I Love This on VH1, Dude, Where's My Car, Spider-Man 2, all those things kind of broke through and allowed me to kind of build a strong foundation for my future. And my goal has always been to be old. So my goal is to just keep soldiering and doing good work until I'm the old guy in the movie. I want to be the guy where I'm 105 and they're like, he's still working. Look at him. It's adorable. That's my goal in life. So, and I'll get my Oscar, but I'll be 96 when it happens. And I'm totally down with that.
Lifetime achievement at that point.
That's right. No. It'll be for an action film. That'll be the fun part. My goal is to be 96 year old, get I want to be at the most dramatic buddy cop film in history where everybody's CG but me. but then, I win an Oscar on merit just because they can't believe I did all my own stunts.
Get to the Waka.
That's right.
Tell me about Talk Soup really quick, because I know that's where a lot of our listeners will, remember you from. I guess who was before you? Was Greg Kinnear and John Henson?
Yep, and then me.
And then you.
I was third, AKA the charm. And so that one was absolutely my break. And one of the greatest things about it is that I could literally measure what fame does to your life in a weekend. So I got the show. I'd been, doing stand up and, and made, little like marginal milestones along the way, but not had a big break yet. Which I still believe was inevitable no matter what happened. But when I got the show, I knew I was going to be on the air starting on July 4th weekend in 1999. So I went out the weekend before, on July 4th weekend. I went down to Santa Monica and walked down 3rd Street Promenade and went, this is the last time I'm going to walk around and nobody's going to know who I am.
Yep. Enjoy the anonymity while it lasts, pal.
That's right. And then I went, shot 4. It was a short week that week, shot 4 shows and the weekend show, came back the next Saturday, went back to 3rd Street Promenade just as a test. And as soon as I walked out of the parking garage onto the main route, there's like this tunnel that goes. As soon as I stepped out, a guy hit me in the chest with his open palm to stop me and went, hey, new Talk Soup guy. It was that fast. He was just flat on, just like, hey, what's going on? Kind of like slap. It was amazing. And from that point forward, I was like, all right, now I've got an opportunity and a responsibility. I think they go hand in hand. So I just, put my head down, did the best work I could. And I try to bring that kind of Midwestern country, Kentucky work ethic to the arts. That's always been, a big part of it is, are you doing the best work you can do? And are you treating it like the opportunity it is, the privilege that you have? And as long as I'm doing that thing, I get to enjoy myself.
Oh, well, I hope your chest has healed. You still got a bruise from that guy whacking you? And I hope they didn't do that to Joel McHale when they spun it off. Like, is that like a rite of passage? Anyone that does the soup or Talk Soup, they get whacked?
No, and he's taller than me, so they would have hit him in the navel. But I think that's the important part. And I had the imprint tattooed on my chest as a moment of remembrance. But all that aside, the nice thing is that, during the current unpleasantness at the beginning of the lockdown, I was able to start live streaming from home like a lot of people did daily at infotainmentwars.com or on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Hal Sparks, to get, to entertain people, calm them, tell jokes, be funny around politics and the circumstance we all found ourselves in. And it really had an impact. And I'm just constantly reminded about how comedy is a service job, and having any level of fame is a responsibility.
Definitely is. But you know what you should have done to prevent the whole handprint thing was just wrapping bubble wrap, man, like Zoltan. Dude, where's my car?
Yeah, predated Zoltan by a year. I that's why, who knew that would come in so handy later in life. And it would have made a giant frapping sound, which is I would later find when I did my own stunts on Dude, Where's My Car. Did a Jackie Chan spin around on the top of a glass counter and fell over the back of it, landing on my suit. And they had to Foley out the crack sound of me hitting the concrete, which was hilariously fun. So yeah, I have 2 bubble wrap suits right now. They're in rotation. They don't tend to dry clean well. I'm just saying they're not, the durability is the thing we have not answered yet. We have not dealt with that issue, and I'm still working on prototypes.
Yeah, but that popping sound that doesn't get old. So,
well, no, it doesn't. It's pleasurable.
Before we run, our fans will kill me if I don't at least ask one follow up about Queer as Folk, because that was such a huge hit, and a lot of our people will know you from that. So,
that's right. I would argue that it was artistically, because of the content at the time, a bit of an artistic cul-de-sac if you didn't work to make sure that you didn't get kind of stuck in it. That said, it was worth doing from the jump. That was the greatest thing that you could see in the script, was this was something that has value. You don't get to That doesn't happen a lot with scripts. But this doesn't, especially television shows. And I have tremendous love for pulp. I love stuff that you can just watch and forget and enjoy yourself. There is more value in that than people know.
True.
That said, though, as somebody coming off of Dude, Where's My Car and doing, Talk Soup, being able to walk into a dramatic series that had the impact it did. And, we were able to do the first HIV positive negative relationship on American television, the first gay marriage, the first gay adoption. Like those kind of things are pivotal to people's lives. And to be able to have participated in that is one of the great joys of my life.
Oh yeah, it just showed your range, like you're saying, comedy and Talk Soup and Dude, Where's My Car, the Citizen Kane of stoner comedies.
Yes.
And then turn around and
So
do
said Steve
drama.
Martin. That's right. That's why we're doing this at the Shakespeare Theatre. You know what I mean? Just in case I feel like busting out some 12th Night. It could happen.
Well, with the political topics that we're talking, that we open the interview with, it can be downright Shakespearean tragedy right now in this country. We don't know. It could
Trump,
go either way,
Trump
man.
is very, it's like Trump is like Cheeto King Lear. I get it. I know what you're going. It makes total sense. It's definitely the third act. I will say that.
Well, I hope there's many more acts of this democracy to come, but these days I don't know. But thanks for helping us, laugh on the way out.
Oh no, there definitely are. I just meant for him. I meant for the great Orange King.
Who knows? And we have conservative listeners on our radio station, and as well as liberal listeners. So that could be. It could be. Why should they come out? They still have a good time laughing at this show, right?
Well, I would argue to find out that I am not their enemy and I mean them no ill, and that a lot of the jokes that I make they can share in as well, because it's not my attack isn't and has never been on on conservatism as such, and the idea that democracy is about finding shared ideas that we can but quite frankly their party in a lot of ways, the Republican Party, has been hijacked by the Trumpies in a way that I don't think is indicative of, they left the train station with, a socially conservative, possibly, family values oriented group, and ended up with a ghost writing game show host who has a long line of, sexual, assault claims, verifiable sexual assault claims against him, who was recorded saying that he could grope women without their consent and it was cool. I don't think that's what they signed up for. And I also think that they've been sold a line that somehow like open borders are a thing, which they aren't. Defund the police isn't a thing. There's a reason Joe Biden won and the other folks didn't.
You raise a good point. It went from tear down this wall to build this wall. Let's win the Cold War to let's embrace Putin. It seems like it's turned upside down on that side of the aisle. But who knows? Maybe it'll come back around.
And here's the thing: it doesn't have to. It really doesn't. I'll gladly argue conservative to liberal, conversation points. We have arguably Joe Manchin and other people like that in our party on the Democratic side of things. And we're, as much as you might hear people gripe, that's part of democracy. That's the messiness of it. And I'll take that over autocracy, theocracy, or monarchy any day.
Yeah, I think the beauty of America and democracy is that there is, progressive and conservative thought. There's the push pull, and but we need to have the democracy, and we need to at least some have a common set of facts that we can argue from, and that's what's sort of been blown to smithereens here. So
I think that's in the world of of comedy, I can't make someone laugh unless we share some level of reality with each other, because if we don't, they'll think I'm making fun of them, or their own personal paranoia won't allow for any kind of community out of it. And comedy is necessary for a highly functioning society. Without it, those are the societies where you can't tell jokes, where you can't laugh about stuff. That's when things start to fall apart, because the next step is angst and anger followed by physical altercation. The humorless societies are the ones that go first.
Well, keep our humorous society going. You're our last hope, Hal Sparks.
That's what. Yes, thank you, Obi-Wan. Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate it, and we hope next time, whenever they decades from now call you in to do, I love the 2020s.
Mhm.
I hope we can look back and laugh on this time, and still have a country. So keep it going.
Oh, we will. Don't worry. Believe me, um I have what I call optimistic stoicism. Soldier forward with the idea that there will be a brighter day, and do the actual work to do it. And I've never been more confident in that than now.
Awesome. Well, again, everyone, come check out Hal Sparks, the hilarious voice you've heard here. It's going to be
Mhm.
at the Shakespeare Theatre, Sidney Harmon Hall in D.C. on September 10th, 8 p.m. Get your tickets now. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, brother. Appreciate it. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else.
Will do. All right. See you in the bubble wrap, man.
Indeed.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.